As my channel tends to focus on budget watches first and foremost, I often get and indeed appreciate comments recommending brands to me. One name that has come up several times in the comments is Militado, often highlighting their value for money and surprising quality. After browsing through their offering, I decided to give the ML05 a go. This video is a part of my Keep or Sell series, where I review a watch I've purchased with my own money and ultimately decide as to whether it stays in my permanent collection or gets sold on to pastures new. Obviously, quality is a key consideration there, but ultimately I always want any addition to bring something unique to my collection to make it more well-rounded overall. With all that said, let's get into the video. As usual, when buying a brand for the first time, I wanted to do my due diligence and find out what I can about them. The first thing I will say is, my word, their website is messy. There are poor translations and text that goes off the screen. As with many Far Eastern brands, the actual history is obfuscated. There's talk of Dirty Dozen inspiration and 20 years in the industry, but very little detail beyond that. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think the brand was formed in Shenzhen in 2023 by a founder who was previously an OEM manufacturer. The waters are a little muddy here, and I don't want to get into any legalities, but there's at least a little friction between Militado and Boltony, with the latter posting a statement distancing themselves from Militado. To be honest, I find it difficult to take one homage brand complaining about another one copying them seriously. It's all deeply ironic, and at the end of the day, as a consumer, we're only really interested in the quality of the product on offer. I mentioned a reference to the Dirty Dozen there. These were watches designed for use by the British military during World War II. Effectively, these timepieces set the design language and expectations for field watches to this day, and there are Militado watches that are homages to those designs. But to my eye, that's more of a half-truth. A lot of the pieces are actually homages to modern pieces from Hamilton, Sin and others. Now, in fairness, those models obviously draw heavily from military designs from World War II, but I think the watch featured in this video, the ML05, is far closer in design to a Hamilton Field Mechanical than it is to a Dirty Dozen piece. I'm not saying that as if it's a bad thing. I love the field range, and the proposition of getting that design language for less than $40 was enticing enough in combination with your recommendations to get me to give it a go. When it came to choosing exactly which variant to go for, there was a surprising amount of customization on offer. You can opt for the arrow motif on the dial or not, black, cream or green dial variants, with or without a date window, for different variations in design for the print work and handset on the dial, and 3 different colorways for the case, plain stainless steel or PVD coated in black or bronze. Now you can take that even further than the ML05 because there are other model numbers that are actually very similar designs. There is the ML07, which to my knowledge is the same watch but smaller at 36mm rather than 38. It gets a little more confusing with the ML08, which has some of the same dial choices, but some others based on the Murph and the Hamilton Khaki Field Automatic, but it comes on a stainless steel bracelet. The standard ML05 models come on a choice of 4 different NATO style straps. The one thing that is broadly consistent across all of their field watch offering is that the asking price is very low. Even if you sort from high cost to low and pick out the most expensive model, it's $79, even if you buy it directly from the brand. I got mine through AliExpress and the cost was just north of $30. Having that extremely low cost in mind is important context for the specification being offered. Depending on the model you choose, you'll be getting one of 3 quartz movements. The no-date models are powered by either VH31 or VH60 Seiko Mecha quartz movements, and if you choose a date window model, you'll get a Swiss Ronda 515. The cases are made from either sandblasted or PVD coated 316L stainless steel, depending on the colorway you go for. The crystal is domed sapphire with clear anti-reflective coating, and there's a screw down crown providing 100 meters of water resistance. The ML05 is 38mm in diameter as discussed and comes in at 10.5mm in thickness. There's C3 lume on the hands, and in the model you're seeing featured, thanks to that mecha quartz movement, you'll get a sweeping second hand like you would were this powered by a mechanical or automatic movement. I think it's important to recognise that absolutely no Western brand offers this kind of spec at this kind of price point. The only way they could even come close realistically would be to have the watches made out in the Far East anyway. Going a step further than that though, there aren't even many Far Eastern brands that offer this level of spec at this price point either. Given that context, I was expecting questionable build quality, uncomfortable on-wrist feel, maybe dodgy timekeeping, and I have to say that my actual reaction to the watch is more like a nod of approval and an, okay, you know what, this is actually alright. I don't think anyone is going to walk away from an experience with the watch and say, oh my, this is the best thing ever. But equally, I don't think anyone would set that expectation based on the cost. For how much I paid, I was impressed. The only thing I would flag up is the strap. It's not bad, but it requires some wearing in to get really comfy. Now, obviously, simply having a nice looking specification sheet doesn't mean much if it looks so awful you'd never consider wearing it. The thing is, as with any homage design, Militado can't really take any credit for how the ML05 looks. One of the reasons that the asking price is low is that clearly no money has been spent on the cost of original design here. But the thing about field watches, they're utilitarian in nature. They're simple designs designed with function as the main priority. And while they might not be everyone's favourite design language, I also highly doubt they're anyone's least favourite. They're pretty uniform and inoffensive in nature generally. Given the fact that ultimately, whether directly or indirectly, this is based on a Dirty Dozen piece, we have to be honest, they all look pretty similar. They're supposed to. Their design was based on the same brief after all. I guess what I'm saying is that if you're buying a homage, I think a field watch is a style that is going to draw far less raised eyebrows than if you were to buy something that looks like a Daytona, but clearly isn't. On to the potential use cases for this timepiece, and really, there's no reason why it can't do everything a more expensive field watch is designed for. Now, I'd hope that no one needs to use one of these for their original military purpose, but certainly camping, exploration, and any kind of outdoorsman activity, it'll do a job. There are pilot variants too, but I have to say, if you're relying on a $30 watch to help pilot a plane, I'm just saying I wouldn't want to be in that position. Now, I don't have a pressure tester for the channel yet, so I couldn't be definitive with you about how this would hold up at 100 meters, but for daily wear, it wasn't remotely an issue, and given the design, it is very clear and legible. And the outsourced quartz movements are reliable, and mine was operating within expected tolerance. Coming full circle back to the opening question of the video though, is this watch worth keeping or one to sell on to pastures new? For me, ultimately, I made the decision to sell this piece on, and ironically, had bought it at such a low price point initially that I actually broke even with it. I want to be clear though, that decision wasn't based on the quality of the watch. I genuinely think it's decent and good value. I even featured one on my list of field watches under $100, so it's something I'd recommend to others, but rather me being very picky with field pieces. They are one of my favourite watch styles, and I genuinely thought I had the perfect piece this year with the Timex Expedition Titanium 38. But after much umming and ahhing, even with that, I'm still on the hunt. While I rate the Militado, it's not realistically going to take the field watch slot in my permanent collection. However, if you want a rough and ready beta watch to use for camping or exploration without worrying about breaking the bank if you manage to break the watch, well, I think it's a great option. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to you. Is this a watch that you'd want to keep? Or would you end up selling it on as I did? Let's discuss in the comments section below. As ever, thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or found it informative, consider dropping the video a like and subscribing for more content like this in future.